Hey friends, it's Alex Lozier, and today I wanted to share with you a little recipe and magical ritual that I'm going to be doing to celebrate the summer solstice. So you're welcome to give it a try if you'd like. I'm here today at this fire circle that's in my neighborhood, and this is a place that I've done magical workings before. Summer solstice is a solar holiday, so it makes sense to work with the element of fire and to do my magical working here in this fire circle. So here in the fire circle, I have all of the ingredients that I'm going to be using for this magical working. Primarily going to be working with flowers, so I have some dried rose petals here that I collected from a local garden. I also have some calendula and chamomile here. And I'm also going to be working with mugwort. So these are the three plants that I'm going to be using in this magical working. And as I'm making this spell, or this magical working, if you will, I like to think about incorporating all of the elements. So I also have some incense here. I have water. And we're going to be using this camping stove here to boil the water. And essentially what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be making a tea. And what I'm thinking about is infusing this tea with all of the elements, as well as the energy from the sun, this solar energy of the solstice. So to begin, I'm going to start by lighting an incense. And I'm just going to begin my ceremonial magic making by cleansing myself, by cleansing the space of this fire circle with the smoke of this incense. And I'm also going to cleanse the containers that I'm going to be using for this ritual. Okay. So I'm just going to stick this in the ground and let it burn as I'm working. So I've already put the stove on top of this propane canister, so we're all set to go. So I'm just going to light this. And I'm even using a yellow lighter to honor the energy of the sun and celebrate solstice. So I have my water here. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this up. And these little camping stoves are great. You can get them pretty cheap on Amazon. I think this one was like 15 bucks, but it's really great for camping or backpacking, or if you want to do a quick little magical spell out in the forest. You can just pop this in your backpack. It's really small and light. Okay, so while I'm waiting for my water to boil, I'm just going to talk a little bit about why I chose these plants in particular to work with. So summer solstice, as I mentioned, it's a holiday where we are celebrating the longest day of the year. And so calendula is a very solar flower. It really just, when you look at it, you know, when it's not dried out, it really just almost looks like a burst of sunshine. And so what I'm doing by using the calendula is that I'm inviting this solar energy into my magical working by working with this plant in particular, but also by working during this this portal energy of the summer solstice. And really all plants and all flowers, maybe I shouldn't say all, but the majority of them, they are essentially nature's solar panels. So what their job in nature is to take the energy of the sun and convert that energy into food. And so that then becomes not only the food that the plants themselves use to sustain themselves, but those plants also become food for animals, and it really is a symbiotic relationship that sustains and supports all life. And flowers in particular are really going to be a central focus in this magical working that I'm doing. And the reason for that is because essentially flowers are how plants reproduce. They are incredibly beautiful and attractive, and the energy of the summer solstice is really about expressing yourself fully and coming into full bloom. It's really about full illumination and experiencing your own divine essence. So that's the energy that I'm calling in here. These are rose flowers, and I'm going to be working with the petals in this working. I don't know if these rose petals are organic or not. They may have been grown with synthetic fertilizers or pesticides. That's something that I'm not sure about. So I'm not actually going to be putting these petals into the tea. I'm actually going to be creating like a double boiler system and just putting the petals around my tea, and I'm going to demonstrate how to do that. So that's something that you can do if you're not sure if the plants that you're working with are organic or not. But rose energy in particular I really like because I have a sacred relationship with working with the stones of rubies. That's what these are. And to me, roses and rubies have a very similar energy. They are all about beauty and abundance, passion, love. They're very heart-centered in their energy, but they also are not a fragile energy. They also come with some protection. They demand a great amount of respect or you're gonna get the thorn. So both ruby and roses are feminine in nature, but they're not fragile. They have a protective quality to them, and I really like that about their energy, and I think they pair really well together. I'm also working with mugwort. So this is mugwort that I foraged and dried before this magical working. And mugwort is actually a lunar plant. So this plant is connected to the energy of the moon, and you can tell that by, if you look at its leaves, it actually has a silvery underside. So when we see plants that are silvery in nature, we know that they are connected to the moon. And this plant in particular, I'm inviting into this magical working because I want to create a sense of balance. The sun illuminates the moon, and the moon is all about our intuition, our inner knowing, our dreamscape, our ability to lucid dream, to decipher meaning from our dreams. And that is an energy that I want to call in. So I'm calling in a balance between the lunar energy, the feminine energy, and the solar energy of the calendula. And calendula, even though it's a solar energy, which is masculine or projective in nature, it has a demulcent quality to it, which means that it lubricates the tissue. So I'm actually going to be drinking this calendula as a tea, and the reason I'm doing that is to create a synergy inside of my body and outside in my external environment as well. And so the calendula, it can be really great to soothe your digestive system and to help rebuild your intestinal lining if you have like leaky gut or something. It also can be really great for your skin. So those are all really great things that I want to call in to work with. So I have my plants here that I'm going to be working with. My water is just about boiled. I'm going to crank up the heat, speed things along a little bit faster. Okay, so I'm actually going to be working with this jar here. I'm going to be pouring my water directly into this mason jar. So I'm going to actually place it inside of this other jar, because what I want to do is I want to create kind of like a little mini double boiler system. And I'm going to put a few sprigs of mugwort in here. Now you don't have to use these plants that I'm working with if you are an herbalist, or if you can even do this with tea that you have in your house. It doesn't have to be something that you wild forage like I did with the mugwort, or anything like that. But the more effort that you put into creating meaning and a sacred relationship with the ingredients in your magical working, the more potent it's going to be. Okay, so this is just about boiled, so I'm gonna call that good. That is hot. Okay, so I'm just gonna pour my water right in here. And I'm gonna actually add a little bit to the outside of the jar. Now when you're making a tea in a mason jar, it's really important that you don't put the lid on it. I would recommend putting like a covered jar or something on top. That's gonna keep the volatile oils that are in the plants from escaping. Essentially, that's where a lot of the medicine in the plants is, and you wanna consume that if you're thinking about making a medicinal tea. What you don't wanna do is you don't wanna screw the lid of the mason jar back on tight, because if you do, what will happen is that the steam inside of the jar will not be able to escape, and it will continuously expand until it explodes your jar, and then you will have water and broken glass everywhere. So avoid doing that and you'll be all right. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to take one of these roses and I'm just going to pick the petals and add them to the water around this jar. So one thing that I'm working on in my personal life is I'm working on finding a home with my partner. So we are currently house hunting and looking for a house to buy. The market is crazy right now. So essentially what I'm doing, in addition to inviting these solar energies in, is I'm also asking in this spell for the path to my future home to be illuminated. And to me, the idea of home is not just a house or a building or a piece of land. I mean, of course, it can be all of those things, but the idea of home to me is also a place where you can be abundant and nourished in every aspect of your life. Mentally, physically, spiritually, nutritionally, nourished with love and family, nourished by good times, friends and family. A place to relax and rejuvenate, and a place where I can also really grow into, where I can grow as a person, where I can grow my jewelry business, a place where I can connect with the land that I own on a deep spiritual level. These are all things that I'm calling into this working. So ask yourself, what energy are you calling into your magical working? I'm sure that what you're trying to manifest is different than what I'm manifesting. I'm just using myself as an example. And when you figure out what your intention is, you'll want to use ingredients that reflect the qualities that you're calling in. So I can use my incense to direct some of the energy. I'm also going to charge this with Reiki. Earlier this year I received my Reiki Master attunement, so that's been something that I've been having a lot of fun playing around with. And now another thing that I really like about creating this double boiler system, now this is hot, so you'll have to figure out if you can personally do this with your jewelry, but I know that I can. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to take my ruby pendant that I'm wearing. So this is a magical talisman that I made for myself. And again, I was talking about how rubies and roses have a really beautiful synergistic energy, which is something that I'm trying to create. My intention is to create a synergy between my internal landscape and my external environment. And so I'm going to charge my ruby pendant in this double boiler, and that is going to infuse all of these energies into my crystal pendant as well. Again, this bowl is hot, so make sure that if you're doing this with a piece of your jewelry, it's something that's going to be safe. I know that rubies can withstand a high amount of heat. You could do this with like a metal chain, for example, but if you weren't sure if it could handle the heat, what you could do is you could just take a little piece of cloth, and you could put the cloth in there and then put your jewelry on that to protect it from the hot glass. But again, I know that this pendant is okay, and this beaded chain that it comes on, I could even just wrap this around my rose bowl here. And I'm just going to sit here for a few minutes holding my intention, channeling Reiki, and infusing this magical working with all of the things that I'm trying to manifest. I'm gonna sit here with it, let it cool down, and once it has, again, I will be taking this tea and I will be sipping on it for the next couple of days so that I'm creating a synergy between the jewelry that I'll be wearing on my physical body externally, and again, creating a synergy internally in my internal landscape with all of my cells working together in harmony to create beauty, optimal health, and also to reflect that energy that I'm calling in. So thank you so much for joining me here today to do a little summer solstice magic. Go ahead and give this a try and see if this is something that you would be interested in doing for yourself. It's a lot of fun and you might enjoy it. If you give it a try, go ahead and let me know in the comments how it goes. Happy summer solstice to you. Lots of love. Bye.